it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not
think
an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr. President,
that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter, go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his butt.
Well, I'm not
like
a big
the rest
fan
of
of yours either, so
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me ask you a question if I can. You repeatedly said...
You aren't the best.
Mr. President, you repeatedly, over the course of the...
Okay, just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President, over the course of the last...
On the campaign trail, you called yourself a nationalist. Some people saw that as emboldening white nationalists. Now people are also saying that
I don't know why you'd say that. That's such a racist
There
question.
are some people that say that now the Republican Party is seen as supporting white nationalists because of your rhetoric. What do you make of that?
I don't believe it. I don't know. Why do I have my highest poll numbers ever with African Americans? Why do I have among the highest poll numbers with African Americans? I mean, why do I have my highest poll numbers? That's such a racist question. Honestly, I mean, I know you have it written down and you're going to tell me. Let me tell you, that's a racist question.
And Mr. President, I want to ask...
You know what the word is? I love our country. I do. You have nationalists, you have globalists. I also love the world, and I don't mind helping the world, but we have to straighten out our country first. We have a lot of problems.
And
Excuse me. But to say that, what you said, is so insulting to me. It's a very terrible thing that you said. And last night, the Republican Party defied history to expand our Senate majority in spite of a very dramatic fundraising disadvantage driven by Democrats' wealthy donors and special interests and very hostile media coverage, to put it mildly. The media coverage set a new record and a new standard. We also had a staggering number of House retirements, so it's a little tough. These are seats that could have been held pretty easily. And as an example of the 11 candidates we campaigned with during the last week, 9 won last night. This election marks the largest Senate gains for a president's party in a first midterm election since at least President Kennedy's in 1962. There have been only 4 midterm elections since 1934 in which a president's party has gained even a single Senate seat. In President Obama's first midterm election, he lost 6 Senate seats, including in the deep blue state of Massachusetts. In the House, Republicans dramatically outperformed historical precedents and overcame a historic number of retirements. The most House Republican retirements in 88 years. 43 House Republicans retired. Now, I will say this, that in many cases they were chairmen of committees, and they left because they weren't chairmen, because the Republicans have a rule for 6 years. And what that does is wonderful in one way. It lets people come through the system and become chairman. And another way, it drives people out. Because when they're a chairman, they don't want to go and not be a chairman. You're the chairman of a committee, and you're a big deal, and all of a sudden, you're not doing that anymore. So they leave. We had a lot of them leave.
But Jeff Flake wasn't a chairman of a committee, and Paul Ryan also retired this cycle. So why do you think that is? Whose fault is it that there were so many retirements?
In Jeff Flake's case, it's me, pure and simple. I retired him. I'm very proud of it. I did the country a great service. Go ahead. Give him that. Give him that. He is retired. I'd like to call it another word, but we're going to treat him with great respect. Go ahead. In 2010, President Obama's first midterm, he lost 63 seats. Really, I mean, we have a list of people that were fantastic. Mike Bost, Rodney Davis, Andy Barr was fantastic. I went to Kentucky. For the most part, I didn't campaign for the House, but I did actually make a special trip for Andy Barr because he was in a very tough race in Kentucky, and He won. That was a very tough race. The polls were all showing that he was down, and down substantially, and he won. So on the other hand, you had some that decided to, let's stay away. Let's stay away. They did very poorly. Carlos Cubella, Mike Kaufman, too bad, Mike. Mia Love. I saw Mia Love. She'd call me all the time to help her. Being held hostage in Venezuela. But Mia Love gave me no love. And she lost. And Barbara Comstock was another one. I mean, I think she could have won that race, but she didn't want to have any embrace. She lost, substantially lost. Peter Roscom didn't want the embrace. Eric Paulson didn't want the embrace. Bob Eugen, I feel badly because I think that's something that could have been won. That's a race that could have been won. John Faso, those are some of the people that, decided for their own reason not to embrace whether it's me or what we stand for. Nancy said last night about bipartisanship and getting together and uniting. She used the word uniting, and she used the bipartisanship statement, which is so important because that's what we should be doing. So we can look at us, they can look at us, and then we can look at them, and it'll go back and forth, and it'll probably be very good for me politically. I could see it being extremely good politically because I think I'm better at that game than they are, actually. But we'll find out. I mean, we'll find out. Or we can work together. You can't do them simultaneously, by the way, just in case somebody says, oh, you can do them both. No, you can't. Because if they're doing that, we're not doing the other, just so you understand. Now what happens is we send it to the Senate, and we'll get 100% Democrat support. It really could be a beautiful bipartisan type of situation. And right now we have just about the cleanest air, the cleanest water we've ever had, and it's always going to be that way. We insist on it. So environmental is very important to me. And with that, I'll take a few questions if you'd like. Whoa, that was a lot of hand shooting up so quickly.
Are you offering a my way or highway scenario to the Democrats?
Not at all.
If they start investigating you, that you can play that game and investigate them.
Better than them.
Can you compartmentalize
that? And I think I know more than they know.
Can you compartmentalize that and still continue to work with them for the benefit of the rest of the country?
No.
Or are all bets off?
No. If they do that, then it's just all it is a warlike posture.
And
Yeah,
so then,
go ahead.
wait a minute, then the follow-up, I'm sorry, John.
You heard my answer. Go ahead.
Challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms. That
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President,
Come on.
that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an
As you know,
invasion.
Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants
Not
in this
at all.
election
No, not
to
at all.
try to keep?
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. They have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process, and I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign.
Wait. You know why we need the people? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
That's true. They weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. It happened a few days ago.
They're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's
I
not
think
an
you
invasion.
should, honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings
Let
would
me
be
ask,
much better.
if I may ask
that's
one other
enough.
question, Mr. President. If I may ask
Peter,
one
go
other
ahead.
question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's
Mr.
enough.
President, I
That's
was
enough.
going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr.
Excuse
President,
me. That's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other
Peter,
question,
let's
if
go.
I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have
I'm not concerned
indictments-
about anything with
that you
the
may have
Russian
indictments coming down?
investigation because it's a hoax.
Are you-
That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President,
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a
I've
very
worked-
rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter, go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his
Well, I'm
butt
not a
like the
big
rest
fan
of
of
us.
yours either, so
I understand.
to be honest
So
with
let me ask you a question if I can. You repeatedly
you.
said,
You aren't the best.
Mr. President, you repeatedly, over the course
Okay,
of the...
just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President, Over the course of the last several days of the campaign, sir, at the end of the campaign, you repeatedly said that Americans need to fear Democrats. You said Democrats would unleash a wave of violent crime that endangers families everywhere. Why are you
Because
pitting
they're very weak on
Americans?
crime.
Why are
Excuse
you
me.
pitting Americans
Peter.
against one another, sir?
Peter, what are you trying to be him?
No, I'm
Peter,
just
let
asking
me
the question.
Let me just tell you, very simple, because they're very weak on crime. Because they have often suggested, members and people within the Democrat Party at a high level have suggested getting rid of ICE, getting rid of law enforcement. That's not going to happen, okay? We want to be strong on the borders. We want to be strong on law enforcement. And I want to cherish ICE because ICE does a fantastic job. What they do for us is it's so unrecognized how good a job they do. So we want to take care of them and we want to hold them very close because they do a good job.
But the question,
Okay,
to be clear, though, the question,
Thank you
sir,
very
is
much.
why are you
sit down,
But
Peter.
the question, but you didn't answer my question. Just very simply, the question is, why are you pitting Americans against one another, sir?
I'm not.
Is that how you view
No, I'm not.
citizens
well,
of
look,
this country?
I'll tell you what. We won a lot of elections last night. We did very well last night.
But in
and
many ways,
I
it
think it's
divided
going
the
to
country.
I think it's going to have a very positive impact. I watched NBC this morning. They didn't report it exactly correctly, but that's that's the fact with NBC. Nothing I can do about that. But I want this country to have protection. We want security in our country. I want security, Peter. I mean, you maybe don't think it's so important. And I think when you don't have it, you are indeed unleashing crime. I feel that.
Would you consider removing Mr. Mueller from his position?
I could have ended it any time I wanted. I didn't. There was no collusion. There was no anything. They went after hackers in Moscow. I don't know about that. They went after people with tax problems from years ago. They went after people with loans and other things. Had nothing to do with my campaign. This is a investigation where many, many millions of dollars has been spent, and there's no collusion. It was supposed to be on collusion. There's no collusion. I think it's very bad for our country, I will tell you. I think it's a shame. And a poll came out today, by the way, from NBC, where a majority of the people do not agree with the Mueller investigation, or it wasn't approved. They have approval and disapproval, and it had a much higher disapproval. And the other thing is they should look at the other side also. They only look at one side. They're not looking at all of the things that came up during this investigation. They don't do that. They should also get people that can be fair, not 13 or 14 or 17. I call them the angry Democrats. They are angry people, and it's a very unfair thing for this country. It's a very, very, forget about unfair to me, it's very bad for our country.
It's unfair to the country, and it's costing millions of dollars. Why don't you just
Give him the
end
mic,
it?
please. I've answered the question. Go ahead, take the Well, I'll give you I will give you voter suppression. You just have to sit down, please. Sit down. I didn't call you. I'll give you voter suppression. Take a look at the CNN polls, how inaccurate they were. That's called voter suppression. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm not responding. I'm responding to. Excuse me. I'm not responding to you. I'm talking to this gentleman. Would you please sit down? Excuse me. Would you please sit down? Please go ahead.
Now that the House of
Very
Representatives
hostile.
has split,
It's such a hostile media. It's so sad. You ask me about. No, you rudely interrupted him. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do your demands remain the same to the United States Congress on immigration in exchange for a DACA fix, in exchange for an amnesty for 1.7 million? Are you willing to change any of those demands that you gave to Congress earlier?
I think we could really do something having to do with DACA. And what really happened with DACA, we could have done some pretty good work on DACA, but a judge ruled that DACA was okay. Had the judge not ruled that way, I think we would have made a deal. Once the judge ruled that way, the Democrats didn't want to talk anymore. We'll see how it works out at the Supreme Court.
President, how do you respond to critics who say that your message on the campaign towards minorities have been polarizing?
I don't think it has been at all.
But is the election of two Muslim women, one of them is veiled to the House, do you think that this is more reflective of multi-ethnic and multicultural America?
Well, that question, I can only say this. You look at the employment and unemployment numbers for African Americans, for Asian Americans, for Hispanic Americans, they're at a historic high. A poll came out recently where my numbers with Hispanics and with African Americans are the highest, the best they've ever been. That took place 2 or 3 days ago, the poll. I have the best numbers with African American and Hispanic American that I've ever had before. Then you saw the same poll. So I can't say that. I can say this. You look at median income, you look at all of the employment and unemployment numbers, they're doing the best they've ever done. It really is very reflective in the polls. Yes, go ahead.
Already looking ahead to 2020, do you want to lock down your ticket right now, sir? Will the vice president be your running mate in 2020?
Well, I haven't asked him, but I hope so. Where are you? Mike, will you be my running mate? Stand up, Mike, please. Raise your right hand. No, I'm only kidding. Will you? Thank you. Okay, good. The answer is yes. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
That was unexpected, but
the Russia investigation, and some say that you could stop all this by declassifying.
I could fire everybody right now, but I don't want to stop it because politically I don't like stopping it.
Yeah.
It's a disgrace. It should have never been started because there was no crime. Everybody has conflicts. They all have conflicts over there that are beyond anything that anybody's ever seen in terms of conflicts. People ask for jobs from the fact that they have very good friends on the other side, like really good friends like Comey, who, by the way, lied and leaked, and also leaked classified information. Nothing happened there. They're wasting a lot of money.
Declassification of the documents. Some say that would clear
it all up.
We're
looking at that. No, we're looking at that very seriously. It's amazing how people on the other side just don't want those documents declassified. But no, we're looking at that very carefully.
Agenda in terms of trade and the Farm Bill?
The Farm Bill is working really well. I mean, we could have had it approved any time, but we're looking to get work rules approved. The farmers want it. I'd like it. The problem is the Democrats are not giving us the 10 votes that we need. Everybody wants it. The farmers want it. But the Democrats are not approving the Farm Bill with work rules. We could have it very fast without the work rules. But we want the work rules in, and the Democrats just don't want to vote for that.
You're a man who likes to win, but last night was not an absolute victory for you.
I'll be honest. I thought it was a very close to complete victory. If we had the majority and we had 1 or 2 or 3 votes to play with, we would have been at a standstill. I really believe that we have a chance to get along very well with the Democrats, and if that's the case, we can do a tremendous amount of legislation and get it approved by both parties. I won Georgia. President Obama campaigned very hard in Georgia. Oprah Winfrey campaigned very, very hard all over the television. I said, this is going to be tough. I only had me. I didn't have anybody else. And then we went to Florida. They had celebrities all over the place. A man who happens to be a very smart person was running, Ron DeSantis, and people didn't give him a chance. And I went, and we did some great work. We talked about the Senate. A lot of money was pouring in for the Democrat. This is a man who's been in office for like 44 years or something. This is a man who's like a professional at getting elected and being at office. So he's not, Bill Nelson, not easy to beat. Okay? But they had a lot of celebrity coming out for Nelson. They had everybody coming out for Nelson. Rick Scott won, and I helped him. But if you look at it from the standpoint of gridlock, I really believe there's going to be much less gridlock because of the way this is going.
You've got a lot of White House staff. Some have been talking about leaving.
People leave. They come in, they're here. It's a very exhausting job. Although I love doing it, I must tell you, but it's exhausting for a lot of people. I'm surprised at a lot of people. They start off, they're young people, they're there for 2 years, and they're old by the time they leave. It's quite exhausting, but I love doing it. I mean, we have many people lined up for every single position. Any position, everybody wants to work in this White House. We are a hot country. This is a hot White House.
Perhaps peace could break out with the media. Perhaps your bipartisan relationships across the House and the Senate may now produce some change.
I would love to see unity and peace and love and any other word you want to use. Obviously, I think we had to, especially at this particular juncture, we had to wait till after the midterms are over. Now they're over. If they would cover me fairly, which they don't. I'm not saying that in a hostile way. I get extremely inaccurate coverage. I can do something that's fantastic, and they'll make it look like not good. If I make a mistake, cover it. I would like you to cover it fairly, but cover it. But when you do something terrific, look how little the economy is talked about. A poll came out this morning talking about how little the 3 networks, I don't think they included CNN, but how little the 3 networks talk about how good the economy is. How little. Almost not at all. If President Obama had this economy, and by the way, if that administration through somebody else kept going, you would have had negative 4.2 instead of positive 4.2% growth. You would have had negative. It was heading down. But here, the point is this, I would love to see unity, including with the media, because I think the media, I'll be honest, I think it's a very divisive thing for our country. I didn't, excuse me. You are not called on.
Will you indeed have to change your tone if you're to get things passed through Congress after losing the House?
I'd be very good at a low tone, but when things are done not correctly about you, written about you, said about you, on television, on wherever it is, you have to defend yourself. I would love to do very even tone, much easier than what I have to do. I have to go around, and going around is much easier than facing somebody and being treated fairly. But when you're not treated fairly, you really have no choice. I would love to have a very even, modest, boring tone. I would be very honored by that. But you know what? When you have to fight, all the time fight, because you're being misrepresented by the media, you really can't do it.
How would you focus on trade and economic issues?
Trade with Japan?
Yes.
Well, we're dealing with Japan right now on trade. You have a great prime minister who just had a very successful election. He's a very good friend of mine. He's one of the people I'm closest with. But I tell him all the time that Japan does not treat the United States fairly on trade. They send in millions of cars at a very low tax. They don't take our cars. And if they do, they have a massive tax on the cars. And I'm not blaming Japan. I'm blaming the people that were in charge of the United States for allowing that to happen. But as you know, we have close to a $100 billion trade deficit with Japan. And Japan has treated us very unfairly. But don't feel lonely, because you weren't the only one.
Secretary Pompeo's talks, North Korea, have been postponed. Sorry, sir.
The sanctions are on. The missiles have stopped. The rockets have stopped. The hostages are home. The great heroes have been coming home. But we're not in any rush at all. There's no rush whatsoever. You know, before I got here, they were dealing with this for over 70 years. And I guess on a nuclear front for 25 years. That's a long time. I've been there. I probably left Singapore 4 or 5 months ago. And we made more progress in that 4 or 5 months than they've made in 70 years. And nobody else could have done what I've done.
Anti-Semitic incidents have increased by 57%. Hate crimes are on the rise. Why do you think that is, and what will you do about it?
It's
as
very
president?
sad to see it. I hate to see it. And as you know, I've done more. In fact, if you were with us the last time we met, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that this president has done more for Israel than any other president. Those words, those exact words. You know, many presidents have said they are going to build the embassy in Jerusalem. Never happened, but it happened with me, and quickly. And not only did it happen, we built the embassy. That would have taken another 15 or 20 years and cost probably billions of dollars, and we did it for a tiny amount of money. It's already done. It's open. Nobody has done more for Israel than Donald Trump. And the nice part is that's not me saying it. That's Prime Minister Netanyahu. China would have superseded us in 2 years as an economic power. Now they're not even close. China got rid of their China 25 because I found it very insulting. I said that to them. I said China 25 is very insulting because China 25 means in 2025 they're going to take over economically the world. I said that's not happening. And we've gone way up. They've gone down. And I don't want them to go down. We'll have a good meeting and we're going to see what we can do. Billions of dollars will soon be pouring into our treasury from taxes that China is paying for us. And if you speak to Mr. Pillsbury, who probably is the leading authority on China, he was on the other day saying he has never seen anything like it. And you know who else hasn't? China hasn't.
And Mr. President,
but we're going to try and make a deal with China because I want to have great relationships with President Xi, as I do, and also with China.
You're talking about the economic. How do you see your role as a moral leader?
Go ahead,
Mr.
please.
President, just
Go
how
ahead,
do you
please,
see your role as a
please.
moral
Go
leader?
ahead. There's so many people, I'm sorry.
As a moral
Go
leader,
ahead.
though.
I think I am a great moral leader, and I love our country.
It's a press conference that Democrats had a choice that you would not work with them on legislation if they were investigating you. Do you not have a choice in the matter as well? Don't you have a responsibility?
I think it's inappropriate. No. I think it's very inappropriate. We should get along and get deals done. Now, we can investigate. They look at us, we look at them, it goes on for 2 years. Then at the end of 2 years, nothing's done. Now, what's bad for them is, being in the majority, I'm just going to blame them. Honestly, it makes it much simpler for me. They will be blamed. But I think Nancy Pelosi, and you know, I put that statement out on social media today about Nancy Pelosi, that if she's short of votes, because frankly, I think she deserves, and a lot of people thought I was being sarcastic or I was kidding. I wasn't. I think she deserves it. She's been fighting long for it. She's been fighting. I really mean this. And, you know, you have other people shooting at her, trying to take over the speakership. And I said, if it's appropriate, I said, if we can and if we will, If she has a problem, I think I would be able to very easily supply her the necessary votes. That's not said in any way other than I really believe she deserves that position. I also believe that Nancy Pelosi and I can work together and get a lot of things done, along with Mitch and everybody else that we have to work with. Excuse me?
Why can't you work together while there are subpoenas or while there are investigations in process?
I think we will. Look, now that the election's over. Now everybody is in love. But then I see the hostility of questions in the room. I come in here as a nice person wanting to answer questions, and I have people jumping out of their seats screaming questions at me. No, the election's over, and I am extraordinarily happy. I really am. And by the way, I tell you if I wasn't, look at what happened in Florida. Look at what happened in Georgia. Look at what happened in so many locations with governorships. Nobody talks about the governorships. Look at the amount of work that was given to these other candidates against my candidate. You look at midterms and you look at elections generally, you see it's very rare that a party who has the presidency does well. We did unbelievably well to win Florida, both the Senate and the governorship, against two very talented people. I'll tell you what, we did incredibly. To win Georgia when you had some of the biggest stars in the world campaigning endlessly, including President Obama.
Yamiche Alcindor with PBS NewsHour. On the campaign trail, you called yourself a nationalist. Some people saw that as emboldening white nationalists. Now people are also
I don't
saying
know why you'd
that
say
the
that.
president.
That's such a racist
There are
question.
some people that say that now the Republican Party is seen as supporting white nationalists because of your rhetoric. What do you make of that?
I don't believe it. I don't know. Why do I have my highest poll numbers ever with African Americans? Why do I have among the highest poll numbers with African Americans? I mean, why do I have my highest poll numbers? That's such a racist question. Honestly, I mean, I know you have it written down and you're going to tell me. Let me tell you, it's a racist question.
And Mr. President, I want to ask.
You know what the word is? I love our country. I do. You have nationalists, you have globalists. I also love the world. And I don't mind helping the world, but we have to straighten out our country first. We have a lot of problems.
And
Excuse me. But to say that, what you said, is so insulting to me. It's a very terrible thing that you said.
And Mr. President, people have you talked about middle class tax cuts on the campaign trail. How will you get Democrats to support that policy? Or
you have to ask them.
Well,
hey,
what's your plan for working with Democrats on a middle class tax plan?
You know what my plan is? I'll ask them. And if they say yes, I'm all for it. And if they say no, there's nothing you can do because you need their votes. Go ahead.
You didn't want Nancy Pelosi to be Speaker, at least you suggested that. You spent a lot of time talking about her and Chuck Schumer.
Not a question of want.
What did she say to you, though, yesterday that made
you
give her support?
Honestly, we had a very warm conversation. You know, she loves this country. She was really, I mean, she's had a very...
Did she promise that they wouldn't seek to impeach you?
She's had a very, we didn't talk about impeaching. We didn't talk, what do? Do you impeach somebody because he created the greatest economic success in the history of our country? Let's impeach him because the country is so successful. Let's impeach him. Has he done anything wrong? They asked somebody, has he done anything wrong? No, but let's impeach him anyway. And they also said, let's impeach Justice Kavanaugh. Let's impeach him. And now they have the second woman coming out, that the first, the second. And I hate to say this, but it was public. And after him, we're going to impeach the vice president. We're going to impeach Mike Pence. Mike Pence doesn't get impeached for anything. So let's impeach the president, and then we'll impeach the vice president. These people are sick. And you know what? They have to get their bearing. Really, they have to get their bearing. And when you ask about division, they're the ones that cause the division. They cause tremendous division.
Will you have more briefings with Sarah Sanders?
You know, when I don't do I think Sarah's fantastic. Where is Sarah? Where is Sarah? Sarah's so great. I think, Sarah, you've represented me so well and been abused. She's been horribly treated by a lot of people.
So she's going to stay on as press secretary.
But it's very interesting because Sarah was telling, we were talking about it the other day. So I had a period where I figured, you know what I'll do? I won't do any real interviews. And then they started saying, why isn't he doing what? You know, they're all coming up with all kinds. Then over the last couple of months, I decided I'll do a lot. We'll stop at the helicopter. We'll do this. We'll do a lot of. And then they say, why is he doing so many press conferences? What's wrong? What? So when I don't do them, you say, what's wrong? When I do them, you say, what's wrong? And when I go in the middle, you say, what's wrong? But in the middle, you know that, John. Right? Yeah, sort of right. Okay, good. No, you did. Excuse me. Well, you complained about access when I purposely just stayed away from the press for a while because I wanted to see how it worked. And can I be honest with you? It didn't work well.
Michael Cohen recently said you called black voters stupid.
That's false.
Omarosa has accused you of using the N-word, and the rapper Little John has said you called him Uncle Tom. What's your response?
I don't know who Little John is. I really
He was on
don't.
The Apprentice.
I don't know. Oh, he was? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Have you ever
I
made
don't know.
racist remarks?
No, I would never do that, and I don't use racist remarks. And you know what? If I did, you would have known about it. I've been hearing there are tapes for years and years. There are tapes. Number one, I never worried about it because I never did. I never used racist remarks. I've never used racist remarks. Okay.
Well, one point of fact.
Go ahead.
One point of fact, because you told her you have the highest approval among African Americans. It's just 8%, sir, single digits.
See, when you talk about division, it's people like this that cause division. Great division. No, point of fact is that I never used a racist remark. That's the point of fact. Who are you from? Yahoo? No, good. Good. I hope they're doing well.
Former President Barack Obama famously said that he had a pen and a phone to use executive power on issues like immigration. Do you see yourself using executive power to get some of your immigration agenda done?
He used it on DACA. And when he did it, he said something to the effect that, I'm not allowed to do this, it'll never hold up, but I'm doing it anyway. And he did it, and they found judges that approved it. We also found judges that didn't approve it, so it's obviously going to be determined in the Supreme Court. And if the court rules in favor of what President Obama thinks they should rule, which is what he said, then I will probably have a deal with the Democrats in a very short period of time. We were very close to having a deal until we got that very strange ruling.
Did you get the ad that you did that was branded as a racist ad, and even Fox News wouldn't air it, NBC wouldn't air it,
Do I regret
other
it?
networks? Yeah.
Surprised you'd ask me that question. I do not.
Many local districts across the country rejected your midterm message, particularly suburban women.
You know, we've taken out thousands of MS-13 gang members, thousands out of it's hard to believe, thousands out of our country. Women of our country, they want security, they want safety, they want financial security also. We've done that, but they want physical security. And we've taken out thousands of people that shouldn't be in this country. But we have to get strong immigration laws. We want laws where they don't come in, where we don't have to take them out per se. Hopefully the tone can get a lot better. And I really believe it begins with the media. We used to call it the press.
Does it begin with you, Mr. President?
I really believe it begins with the media. If you would cover, and there was a very interesting story written in a very good paper recently that talked about the fact that it isn't good what the media is doing, and that I do have the right to fight back because I'm treated very unfairly. So I do fight back, and I'm fighting back not for me. I'm fighting back for the people of this country. Thank you all very much. Thank you.